A Republican-led voting security bill could cause a government shutdown next month. The House Freedom Caucus has officially urged Speaker Johnson to attach it to the bill known as the SAVE Act to spending legislation. So Chris Bedford joins us now to discuss. So would this be a strategic move for the Republicans to attach this to the SAVE Act?
I think it absolutely would be. And you can check out tomorrow morning's Beltway brief where I lay out the case in 1,000 words. But this is good messaging right here. Right now, Democrats and independents are joining Republicans in opposing illegal immigration, so much so that you see Vice President Kamala Harris talking about how she's going to finish the wall. That's a large turnaround. This is a messaging fight where they do well. And Democrats were trying to argue that this act put forward by Chip Roy and Mike Lee and talked about in this show a number of times, that it's unnecessary, that this is already illegal. And that kind of ground right there where you're arguing on technicalities of policy is ground that's usually familiar to Republican lawmakers who try to do that all the time. But it's not a winning political message. Something that the Republicans have here is one that people largely agree on. Of course, there's the difficulty you have of the press being against it. And there's, of course, a little bit of timidity by the campaign that says, hold on a second, Trump's ahead by 1 or 2 points. It looks like it's a close lead. Why upset that apple cart? But this is the kind of messaging fight that is going to force Senator Chuck Schumer, the leader of the Democrats, to put his guys into tough positions. He's going to have to push hard votes on some of his incumbents who are coming up for re-election in red states. It puts him in a very bad space. I think this is actually something Republicans could win on, and they don't do a whole lot of winning in shutdown fights. The only person, though, who seriously disagrees with that is Mitch McConnell, but he's somewhat isolated in that position.
You and Senator Mike Lee are speaking the same tune because he went on X and voiced his support for the SAVE Act. He said, hats off to Speaker Johnson for attaching the SAVE Act to the September spending bill. If it's a non-starter with Democrats to deter non-citizens from voting, they're going to have to explain that. So, Chris, what are the chances that the Democrats actually explain that their motivations are to stonewall voter ID efforts?
Well, some of them are going to have to. I mean, if you're Chuck Schumer, you don't need to. You live in New York. You're going to be reelected when your time comes. You'll be okay. But if you're Tester in Montana or Senator Brown in Ohio, who are both facing really difficult races, likely possibly to lose, and you're people who Democrats really need, then you're going to end up having to explain this. And the reason for that is Chuck Schumer, in order to if the House sticks to its guns and the House passes legislation and the House forces the Senate to take this up, that's a lot of ifs. Basically, the Speaker of the House would have to pass it this week or next, and then maybe leave town again. Or not this week or next week or the week after that when they come back in a session, and then maybe adjourn the House and leave the bill for the Senate to actually have to consider, force them to actually pick it up. Because once they do pick it up, Schumer's going to need 51 votes in order to strip the SAVE Act from government funding and not shut the government down. That means he needs Brown to vote with him, and he needs Tester to vote with him. Those put those incumbents in really difficult political positions and make it a hard game for Democrats not to play.
Chris, let's talk about that, making that game harder. I think one of the most remarkable things that I've seen in a while on the insane timeline that is history unfolding these days is Senator Mike Lee getting the retweet from Elon Musk, one of the most powerful men in the world, throwing his weight into this fight for the SAVE Act and saying, look, and pointing it out, coming over the top of the senator online. And, Twitter isn't real life, but it's sort of an amazing group of people coming together on this issue where there's got to be, 100 million plus, views someone's sending me today sent there just by Elon alone. And you see a lot of the tech people coming in to support Lee on this. What do you make of that?
What would you have said if a time traveler in 2014 had said, in 10 years, the Kochs will matter not at all. The Bush Empire will be completely anathema to the Republican Party, and you're going to agree with Elon Musk, Donald Trump, and Glenn Greenwald on most things. I would have believed them for a second, but that's just how much our political landscape has changed over the last decade. It's just something, just like we were talking about a moment ago, that has popular broad support, where Democrats are stuck in that kind of normally conservative point of view of trying to argue on the technicalities. It's that kind of message that's actually going to cut through. And, McConnell is also trying to get down into the technical bits. He keeps on telling the press, well, if we open this up, then Democrats will use Senate Rule 22 to attach the John Lewis Civil Rights Act or Voting Rights Act. But I don't think that passes muster. I don't think that he's actually going to be able to get that passed. And here's a big thing that's actually changed on this shutdown fight versus any I've seen over the last 15 years in D.C., and it's been a few, is that the donors really like this. So you got Elon Musk and a lot of the tech guys out there, but if you actually talking to some people who've been at some of the larger donor conferences, Senate donor conferences over the last couple of weeks, there's a hunger amongst that type and that set, which is not usually with the grassroots, to actually push this through. It makes McConnell a pretty isolated man.
If we want a preview of what the Democrats are going to say, let's listen to Democrat Representative Hakeem Jeffrey saying that the SAVE Act is actually voter suppression.
Only citizens can vote for the United States Senate. Only citizens can vote for the presidency of the United States. So this extreme MAGA Republican voter suppression bill is not designed to solve any problem on behalf of the American people. It is designed to jam people up and prevent Americans from voting.
Only citizens can vote. So if they believe that, then why can't they just put that into law, Chris?
Isn't this classic? I feel like the shoes have just switched so dramatically, where Democrats are saying, well, we need to, usually the situation is Democrats say, we need to pass this law against this awful thing that usually isn't something that's actually happening and usually would just curtail American civil rights. And Republicans are the ones saying, well, that's already illegal. That's not even the case here. Democrats are stuck in that losing spot. Now, Jeffrey's messaging here is where he wants to go. It's simple. Voter suppression, voter suppression. But obviously it's not catching on. I mean, sometimes you can make that work. Like when the Democrats were able to label Florida's law taking pornography out of classrooms as a don't say gay law. They were successful in that. Reporters were repeating that over and over again. But now even in the D.C. press corps, well, a lot of folks are putting up their nose and saying, this won't pass. Democrats won't let this happen. They're not able to get that voter suppression message in. The SAVE Act is extremely narrow. It's well defined. It goes at a specific problem. It demands that someone be a citizen. And if you have such a problem with that, Democrats, then maybe it's because you're for non-citizens voting.